The steel jaws had clamped around Cole Vance's left leg 3 hours before dawn, and now the sun hung merciless overhead while his horse stood 20 yards away, reins dangling uselessly. Cole had stopped shouting an hour ago when his throat turned raw as sandpaper, and now he simply existed in a fog of pain, watching the shadows creep across the rocky Colorado landscape while his canteen lay just beyond reach where it had fallen. His father had warned him about riding alone through the foothills outside Trinidad, but Cole had been tracking that mountain lion for 2 days, determined to collect the bounty that would finally give him enough money to buy the land he wanted near the Arkansas River. The trap belonged to some fool trapper who had set it illegally on cattle grazing land, hidden beneath a scatter of pine needles and dried grass. Cole had dismounted to examine what he thought were fresh tracks, and the next moment he was on his back, screaming, the rusted metal teeth buried deep in his calf through his leather boot. He had tried everything, prying at the springs with his knife until the blade snapped, digging around the chain that anchored it to a buried log, even attempting to shoot the mechanism apart until he realized he might blow his own foot off. The trap was old but well made, designed to hold a wolf or a bear, and Cole weighed considerably less than either. Now his vision swam with dehydration and pain, and he thought he might be imagining the sound of hoofbeats approaching from the south. But no, there it was again, definitely real, coming closer through the scattered ponderosa pines that dotted this stretch of high desert terrain. Cole tried to call out, but his voice emerged as barely more than a croak. He fumbled for his pistol, fired a shot into the air, and the effort left him gasping. The rider appeared moments later, emerging from behind a massive boulder worn smooth by centuries of wind. Cole's pain-hazed mind registered several things at once. The rider was a woman. She sat her Palomino mare like she had been born in the saddle, and she was already spurring toward him at a gallop. She hit the ground running before her horse had fully stopped, dropping to her knees beside him with wide brown eyes that took in the situation with frightening speed. Sweet mercy, she breathed, and her hands were already moving, examining the trap, the wound, calculating. How long have you been caught? Hours, Cole managed, his voice a ruined rasp. Since before dawn. Cannot get it open. She did not waste time with sympathy or useless questions. Her fingers traced the trap's mechanism with practiced efficiency, and Cole noticed through his haze that her hands were calloused, the hands of someone who worked hard for her living. She wore split riding skirts and a simple cotton blouse, her dark hair pulled back in a thick braid that hung past her shoulders, and something about her face struck him as both strong and soft at once. "I am Helena Walsh," she said, still examining the trap. "I run my father's ranch about 5 miles south of here. This is one of those old Newhouse bear traps. You need 2 people to open it normally, but I have a trick my father taught me." She was already shrugging out of a canvas coat. "We need to hurry. Can you smell that?" Cole inhaled and felt his stomach drop. Blood. His blood soaked into the earth around him, and any predator within a mile would be able to scent it. "Wolves," he said. "Mountain lions too, probably, given how much blood you have lost." Helena was working as she spoke, never still, pulling a length of rope from her saddle and fashioning it into a complex arrangement around the trap's springs. "My father was a trapper before he became a rancher. He taught me every trap made. This is going to hurt considerably when I release it, but the wound needs cleaning immediately or infection will kill you faster than any wolf." "Do it," Cole gritted out. Helena positioned herself carefully, threading the rope through the trap's mechanism and around a sturdy pine trunk 3 feet away. She created what looked like a pulley system, then tied off the rope and grabbed her canteen. "Drink first," she ordered, holding it to his lips. "You are white as a ghost, and I need you conscious." The water was the most glorious thing Cole had ever tasted. He drank greedily while Helena returned to her rope system, testing the tension. "When I pull this, the jaws will release. I need you to pull your leg out immediately, understand? Do not hesitate, do not go slow. Just pull it free the instant you feel the pressure release. Cole nodded, gripping his thigh with both hands, preparing himself. Helena wrapped the rope around her own waist and braced her boots against the base of the pine tree. On three, 1, 2, 3. She pulled with all her weight, and Cole saw the muscles in her arms and shoulders strain with the effort. The trap's springs compressed. The jaws began to open, and Cole yanked his leg free with a howl that echoed off the canyon walls. The trap snapped shut again with a vicious clang, and Helena was already beside him, pulling a knife from her boot and cutting away his blood-soaked pant leg. Bad, but not as bad as it could be, she muttered, examining the wound. The bone is intact, I think. The bleeding has slowed some, which is good and bad. Good because you will not bleed out in the next 10 minutes. Bad because it means you have already lost considerable blood. She pulled a flask from her saddlebag, and when she uncorked it, Cole smelled whiskey. This will hurt. It did. Cole bit down on the leather strap she offered him, his back arching off the ground as she poured alcohol directly into the wound. Through the red haze of agony, he felt her wrapping something around his leg, binding it tight. When his vision cleared, he saw she had torn strips from her own underskirt to create a bandage. "Can you ride?" Helena asked. Cole tried to sit up, and the world tilted sideways. Helena caught him, surprisingly strong for her size. "I will take that as a no," she said. She whistled sharply, and both horses trotted over obediently. "Your gelding there seems well trained. We are going to get you on my mare because she is steadier, and I will pony your horse behind us. My ranch is closest, and I have medical supplies there." "Trinidad is only 7 miles, Cole protested weakly. "Uphill, and you would never make it. My ranch is 5 miles of mostly flat terrain, and I can have you there in under an hour." She was already maneuvering his arm around her shoulders, preparing to lift him. "Besides, the doctor in Trinidad is visiting Santa Fe for the week. Everyone knows this. So unless you want my cousin Sarah to tend you, who learned her medical skills from a mail order catalog, you want me. I've been treating injured ranch hands and animals since I was 12 years old." Cole found he did not have the strength to argue. With Helena supporting most of his weight, he managed to stand on his good leg. Getting into the saddle was an ordeal that left him gasping and sweating, but Helena's hands were firm and capable, guiding him, adjusting his position until he could slump forward against the mare's neck. She mounted behind him, one arm around his waist to hold him steady, the other hand taking up the reins. "Stay conscious if you can," she said against his ear, and then they were moving. The ride passed in a blur of pain and heat. Cole drifted in and out of awareness, registering scattered impressions. The steady rhythm of the horse beneath them, the surprising strength of Helena's arm around him, the way she spoke to him constantly, asking him questions, forcing him to respond, to keep him from passing out entirely. He told her about tracking the mountain lion, about his plans for the land by the river, about growing up on a small homestead that had failed when the drought came 3 years back. She told him about her father's ranch, about learning to work cattle and break horses, about her mother who had died when Helena was 16, leaving her to run the household while her father managed the land. "There," Helena said finally, and Cole lifted his heavy head to see a sprawling ranch house nestled in a valley where a spring-fed creek created an impossible ribbon of green through the brown landscape. Cottonwood trees clustered around the buildings, and he could see cattle grazing in the distance, horses in a corral near a large barn. "Home? Father will be out with the men moving the herd to summer pasture, so it is just me and Maria, our housekeeper. Better that way. Maria will not ask foolish questions." They rode into the yard, and a plump Mexican woman emerged from the house, her exclamations of concern flowing in rapid Spanish and English. Between the two women, they got Cole off the horse and into the house, through a tidy kitchen that smelled of baking bread, and into a bedroom that Helena explained was usually kept for injured ranch hands. "Maria, I need hot water, clean cloth, needle and thread, carbolic acid, and whiskey," Helena was saying, all business, as she eased Cole onto the bed. Also willow bark tea if we have any left. The next hour was an exercise in controlled agony. Helena cleaned the wound thoroughly, her face set in concentration as she worked. The teeth went deep, but they missed the major blood vessels, thank God. You were lucky, Mr. Vance. Cole, he managed. Call me Cole. Lucky is not how I would describe today. A flicker of a smile crossed her face. Fair enough. But you are alive, and that is more than you would be if I had not been riding to check our north fence line. We had reports of someone cutting the wire, and Father asked me to investigate while he was gone. Her hands never stopped moving as she spoke, irrigating the wound with carbolic solution. This needs stitches. I am going to give you enough whiskey that you do not care what I do, understood? Cole drank what she offered, and kept drinking until the room took on a soft, distant quality. He watched Helena thread a curved needle with steady hands, watched her bend over his leg with absolute focus. He felt the stitches going in, but the pain seemed to belong to someone else now. Instead, he found himself studying her face. The delicate arch of her eyebrows, the way she caught her lower lip between her teeth when she concentrated, the curl of dark hair that had escaped her braid to frame her face. You are staring, Helena said without looking up. You are beautiful, Cole heard himself say, and blamed the whiskey. Now she did look up, and something flickered in those brown eyes. Amusement, maybe, or surprise. You are delirious from blood loss and whiskey. Ask me again when you are sober and can remember saying it. But there was a softness to her voice that had not been there before. She finished stitching and bandaged the leg properly with clean cotton strips. You are staying here at least 3 days, she said firmly. That wound needs watching for infection, and you need rest and food to recover your strength. Do not argue. You could not make it back to town on your own right now if your life depended on it. Cole found he had no desire to argue. The bed was comfortable, the room was cool and dim, and Helena's presence was somehow both calming and electrifying at once. Thank you, he said quietly. You saved my life today. Yes, well. She stood, gathering her supplies. Seemed like the right thing to do. I will bring you some broth shortly. Maria makes a restorative soup that would wake the dead. Sleep now. Cole slept. He woke to darkness and the sound of wolves howling in the distance, and for a moment panic seized him as he remembered the trap, the blood, the danger. But then he registered the soft bed beneath him, the clean bandage on his leg, the dim glow of lamplight from under the door. Safe. He was safe. The door opened quietly and Helena slipped in carrying a lamp and a tray. I heard you moving, she said softly. Thought you might be ready for something more substantial than broth. Cole struggled to sit up, and she set down the tray to help him, adjusting pillows behind his back. He caught the scent of her, something clean and herbal, maybe lavender, and felt his pulse quicken in a way that had nothing to do with pain or fear. What time is it? He asked. Near midnight. You have been asleep for almost 12 hours. She settled in a chair beside the bed, watching him eat the soup and bread she had brought. How is the pain? Bearable. It was not quite, but it was better than it had been. How did you learn all this? The trap, the medical care, all of it? Helena leaned back in her chair, and in the lamplight she looked younger than he had first thought. Early 20s maybe, close to his own 24 years. Necessity mostly. When Mother died, Father fell apart for a while. Someone had to keep the ranch running, keep the men organized, handle injuries and illnesses. We are too far from town to call the doctor for every little thing. So I learned. Father taught me what he knew about animals and injuries, and I read every medical text I could get my hands on. Turns out a lot of what works on horses works on people too. You run this whole ranch? Cole asked, surprised. Not alone. Father handles the major decisions, the business side, but the day-to-day operations, keeping the hands fed and healthy, managing the horses, supervising the household, yes, that is mostly me. She said it matter-of-factly, without pride or complaint. Just stating reality. It is not traditional, I know. The ladies in town think I am strange, too independent, too unwilling to concern myself with proper feminine pursuits. The ladies in town are fools, Cole said, and was rewarded with a genuine smile. Perhaps, or perhaps they are simply different from me, and that is acceptable too. She stood to collect his empty dishes. You should rest more. I will check your wound in the morning, change the bandage. Helena, Cole said, and she paused at the door. That thing I said earlier about you being beautiful, I meant it. Whiskey just made me brave enough to say it out loud. Even in the dim light, he could see the color rise in her cheeks. Sleep, Cole Vance. We can discuss your delirious declarations when you can stand upright without falling over. But she was smiling as she left, and Cole fell asleep with that smile on his mind. The next 3 days passed in a strange, suspended kind of peace. Cole's wound showed no signs of infection, thanks to Helena's thorough care, and his strength returned gradually. Helena checked on him regularly, changing bandages, bringing food, staying to talk. She told him about the ranch, about growing up wild and free in the Colorado high country, about the challenges of ranching in a land that could be beautiful and brutal in equal measure. Cole found himself sharing things he rarely discussed: his mother's death when he was young, his father's struggles, an eventual death from pneumonia 2 winters past, his determination to make something of himself despite having started with nothing. The land by the river, Helena said on the 3rd evening. Sitting in her usual chair while Cole sat propped up in bed, his legs still too painful for much walking. Tell me about it. It is perfect, Cole said, and heard the longing in his own voice. 200 acres with river frontage, good grass, enough timber for building. There is even an old cabin on it, needs work, but it is sound. The owner died last year and his widow wants to sell and move back east to live with her daughter. She is asking a fair price, but I'm still $100 short. That mountain lion bounty would have done it. So you will track it again when you heal, Helena said. I suppose so, though I admit I am somewhat less eager to go wandering alone through the wilderness now. He flexed his injured leg carefully, wincing. This has been educational about the risks. Helena was quiet for a moment, her fingers pleating the fabric of her skirt. Cole, I have been thinking. We need a new foreman here. Our last one left to start his own place in Wyoming, and Father has been trying to manage without one, but it is too much for him alone, especially now that he's getting older. The position pays $40 a month plus room and board. It is hard work, long hours, but you would have enough saved for your land in 3 months. Cole stared at her. You are offering me a job? I am suggesting you apply for one. Father would make the final decision, but my opinion carries weight, and I would recommend you. She met his eyes steadily. You are clearly hard-working and determined, or you would not have been out tracking that lion for days. You understand cattle and horses, I can tell from how you talk about them, and you need the money. It seems practical. Practical, Cole thought. Except there was nothing practical about the way his heart was beating, or the way he found himself looking forward to her visits, or the fact that the thought of leaving in a few days and never seeing her again felt like another kind of trap closing around him. When does your father return? He asked. Tomorrow afternoon. You could meet with him then, if your leg is up to it. I will make it be up to it, Cole said. Helena smiled. That same soft expression that made something in his chest tighten. Good. That is good. She stood preparing to leave as she did every evening. I should let you rest. Helena, wait. Cole spoke before he could lose his courage. Why are you doing this? The job offer, I mean. You do not know me. I could be a terrible worker. I could rob you blind. She paused at the door, her hand on the frame, her back to him. I am a good judge of character, she said quietly. I have to be in my position, and I think you are exactly what this ranch needs. She glanced back over her shoulder. What I need, perhaps, someone who understands what it is to want something badly enough to risk everything for it. Someone who does not break easily. She left before he could respond, and Cole lay awake long into the night, thinking about opportunities and second chances and the strange way fate sometimes worked. Helena's father, Henry Walsh, rode in the next afternoon with 4 dusty ranch hands and 100 head of cattle that had been moved to higher pasture. He was a tall, weathered man in his 50s with shrewd eyes and a firm handshake, and he listened without interruption as Helena explained the situation, how she had found Cole, treated his injuries, and invited him to stay while he recovered. Careless, getting caught in a trap, Henry observed, studying Cole where he sat carefully in a chair in the front room, his injured leg propped on a stool. Yes, sir, it was, Cole agreed, refusing to make excuses. I was focused on tracking and did not check my footing as carefully as I should have. I learned an expensive lesson. Henry grunted, seeming to appreciate the honest answer. Helena says you are looking for work. I am, sir. I have experience with cattle and horses, can handle a rope and a branding iron, and I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm trying to save enough to buy land of my own, which means I have a powerful incentive to show up and earn my wages. References? Cole provided the names of 3 ranchers he had worked for previously, men scattered across southern Colorado. Henry noted them down carefully. I will check these, he warned. If they do not speak well of you, the offer is withdrawn. I would expect nothing less, sir. They talked for another hour about ranching, about the challenges of the coming season, about Cole's experience and Henry's expectations. Throughout it all, Cole was aware of Helena moving around the edges of the room, pretending to be busy with needlework, while clearly listening to every word. When Henry finally stood to leave, Cole struggled to his feet despite the protest from his leg. Stay off that leg another few days, Hortorikabai, Henry ordered. I will contact your references. If they check out, we can discuss details when you're mobile again. Helena, walk with me. Father and daughter stepped outside, and Cole sank back into his chair, his leg throbbing. Through the open window he could hear their voices, low and serious. You are sure about this? Henry was saying. You found him 3 days ago. That is hardly time to judge someone's character. I am sure. Helena's voice was firm. We need help, Father. You cannot do everything alone anymore, and I believe he will be good for the ranch. The ranch or for you? Henry's voice was gentle, knowing. A long pause. Maybe both, Helena said finally, so quietly Cole almost missed it. Is that so wrong? No, daughter, but be careful. You have a tender heart under all that toughness, and I would not see it broken. I know what I'm doing, Helena said. I hope so, Henry replied, and their voices faded as they walked toward the barn. Cole sat in the quiet room, his mind racing. She had feelings for him. He had suspected, hoped even, but to hear it confirmed made everything more real, more fraught with possibility and danger. He was a man with nothing. She was a woman of property and means. The world did not look kindly on such mismatches, and yet, when she returned to the room an hour later with fresh bandages and that focused, caring expression, Cole knew he was already lost. Father will check your references, Helena said, kneeling to unwrap his leg and examine the healing wound. I think he likes you, or he would have said no outright. And if he offers me the job, I will take it, Cole said, her hands stilled on the bandage. Truly? Truly. I want that land, yes, but I also want to stay here, near you, with you, if that is allowed. Helena resumed her work, but he could see the flush on her cheeks, the slight tremble in her fingers. That would be allowed, she said softly, more than allowed, welcomed. Henry's references checked out exactly as Cole had promised. Within a week, Cole was hired as the ranch foreman, and within 2 weeks he was living in the foreman's quarters, a small but comfortable cabin near the main barn. His leg was healing well, though Helena insisted on checking it regularly, and Cole suspected the injury was more healed than either of them wanted to admit because it gave them an excuse to be alone together. The work was demanding but satisfying. Cole threw himself into learning the ranch's operations, working alongside the other hands to prove himself, staying late to review accounts and breeding records with Henry. The older man was exacting but fair, and Cole sensed he was being tested constantly, evaluated for more than just his ability to manage cattle. Helena was a constant presence, riding out with the men to check fences and water sources, working horses in the corral with easy competence, managing the household, and accounts with the same efficiency she brought to everything else. Cole watched her navigate the male-dominated world of ranching with a combination of strength and grace that left him awed. The men respected her not because she was the owner's daughter, but because she had earned that respect through years of hard work and fair dealing. The summer heat settled over the valley, and Cole found himself inventing reasons to seek Helena out. Questions about the breeding program, consultations about which pastures to use when, discussions of supply orders that could easily have been handled through Henry. She never called him out on it, never pointed out that he was manufacturing excuses. Instead, she would smile that knowing smile and give him her full attention. And they would talk for hours about everything and nothing. One evening in late July, Cole found Helena in the barn after the other hands had retired for the night. She was checking on a mare who was close to foaling, running her hands over the horse's distended belly with practiced gentleness. "She is not ready yet," Helena said, without turning around. "Another few days, I think." "You have a gift with horses," Cole said, leaning against the stall door. "I have seen a lot of horse handlers in my time, but I have never seen anyone with your instinct for them." "My mother's gift," Father says. "She could gentle the wildest mustang with just patience and kindness." Helena straightened, brushing straw from her split skirts. "I wish I remembered her better. I was so young when she got sick." "You must miss her," Cole said, "every day, but especially times like these when I wish I could ask her advice." Helena moved to the stall door, and Cole stepped back to let her out. They stood close in the lantern light, the warm smell of hay and horses surrounding them. "Advice about what?" Cole asked, though he thought he knew. Helena looked up at him, her dark eyes serious. "About what it means when you cannot stop thinking about someone. When the best part of your day is seeing them smile. When you find yourself imagining a future that includes them, even though it seems impossibly complicated." Cole's heart hammered against his ribs. "I do not think you need advice about that," he said carefully. "I think you already know what it means." "Perhaps, but knowing something and acting on it are different things." She was close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes, close enough to catch the scent of lavender that clung to her hair. "You work for my father, Cole. For me, in a way. And I'm supposed to be a proper lady who waits patiently for some suitable man from a good family to come courting with flowers and poetry." "And what do you want?" Cole asked. "I want this," Helena said, and kissed him. It was not tentative or uncertain. It was firm and sure, her hand coming up to cup the back of his neck, and Cole responded without thought, pulling her closer, deepening the kiss. She tasted like cinnamon and coffee, and the feel of her against him was like coming home to a place he had never known existed. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "I am in love with you," he said, the words tumbling out before he could censor them. "I know it is fast. I know it is impractical. I know I have almost nothing to offer you, but I have been in love with you since you pulled me free of that trap and looked at me like I was worth saving." "You are worth saving," Helena said fiercely. "And I am in love with you too, you stubborn, wonderful man. But Cole, we have to be smart about this. Father likes you, but he has expectations for me. Marriage to someone established, someone who can provide security." "I will get that land," Cole said with sudden fierce determination. 3 months, you said. In 3 months I will have enough. I will build that ranch into something prosperous, something worthy of you, and then I will ask your father properly for permission to court you." Helena pulled back slightly, studying his face. "You would wait 3 months?" "I would wait 3 years if that is what it took," Cole said honestly. "But I'm hoping I do not have to. I'm hoping I can prove myself quickly, earn your father's respect and approval." "He already respects you," Helena said. I see it in how he talks to you, how he listens to your opinions. But respect and accepting you as a son-in-law are different things." She sighed, stepping back reluctantly. "We should be careful. No one can know about this yet, not until you are more established. Father would not forbid it, but he might feel obligated to for propriety's sake, and I will not put him in that position." It was not what Cole wanted to hear, but he recognized the wisdom in it. "So we wait," he said. "We work. And in a few months, when I have that land and proof that I can build something lasting, I court you properly." "Yes," Helena agreed. But then she smiled mischievously and pulled him down for another kiss. "But that does not mean we cannot steal moments like this when we can." The next months were the hardest and best of Cole's life. He worked from before dawn until after dark, pushing himself to prove his worth. He implemented new systems for tracking the herd's health, reorganized the breeding program to focus on stronger bloodlines, and spent his evenings poring over books on modern ranching techniques that Helena quietly loaned him from her father's library. His injury healed completely, leaving only a semicircle of scars that he wore as a reminder of how fortune could change in an instant. Henry gave him more responsibility, trusting him with major decisions and consulting him on everything from which bulls to purchase to whether to expand their water rights. The other ranch hands, initially skeptical of the newcomer who had been promoted so quickly, gradually accepted him as he proved himself willing to do any task alongside them, never asking them to do something he would not do himself. And through it all, there was Helena. They stole moments together whenever they could, lingering conversations in the barn after everyone else had gone to bed, rides out to check distant fence lines where they could talk freely, quick touches and secret smiles across the dinner table that Cole hoped no one else noticed. It was sweet torture, being so close to her and yet unable to declare his feelings openly, unable to touch her the way he wanted to, unable to plan a future together publicly. In late September, nearly 4 months after Helena had found him in that trap, Cole rode into Trinidad to meet with the widow about the land. His saved wages, combined with the small advance Henry had given him for his work on the breeding program, finally added up to the full purchase price. He stood in the lawyer's office and signed his name to the deed, and the enormity of it hit him like a physical force. He owned land, real property with water rights and timber and possibilities. He was not rich, not by any means, but he was no longer a man with nothing. The ride back to the Walsh ranch took 2 hours, and Cole spent every minute planning. He would talk to Henry that evening, lay out his prospects honestly, and ask permission to court Helena properly. They would have a decent engagement period, maybe 6 months, during which Cole would start work on the cabin and begin his own herd with calves purchased from Henry. By next summer, he could offer Helena an actual home, not a finished palace, but the foundation of something that could become one. He arrived at the ranch as the sun was setting, the valley painted in shades of orange and gold. But as he rode into the yard, he knew immediately that something was wrong. The hands were clustered in nervous groups, talking in low voices. Maria stood on the porch of the main house, wringing her hands. And Henry sat on the porch steps with his head in his hands, looking older than Cole had ever seen him. Cole dismounted quickly, his stomach dropping. What happened? One of the hands, a grizzled cowboy named Dutch, stepped forward. "It is Miss Helena. She went riding this morning up to the North Range, and her horse came back without her 3 hours ago. We have been searching, but there is no sign." The world seemed to tilt sideways. Cole grabbed Dutch's shoulder. "What do you mean, no sign? She has to be somewhere." "Her horse has blood on the saddle," Henry said, his voice hollow. "Not much, but enough. And we found her rifle on the ground near Copper Canyon. Something happened up there." Cole was moving before conscious thought, swinging back into his saddle. "How many men are searching?" "Everyone we have," Dutch said. "But it will be full dark soon, and that country is rough. Canyons and ravines everywhere. If she is hurt and cannot call out, or if she has taken shelter somewhere hidden, we could ride right past her." "Then we get torches and we keep looking," Cole said flatly. "I'm not stopping until we find her." Henry looked up, and his eyes were red. Cole, you need to understand. There are bears in those canyons, mountain lions. If she is injured and cannot defend herself—" "Do not," Cole interrupted, his voice hard. "Do not say it. She is alive, and we are going to find her." He looked at the assembled men. "Dutch, you and half the men take the eastern section. Henry, you stay here in case she makes it back. The rest of you are with me. We start at Copper Canyon and work in a grid pattern. No one rides alone and everyone carries a weapon. Move out." To his surprise, no one questioned his authority. They simply obeyed, mounting up and organizing themselves quickly. As Cole rode out at the head of his group, he felt Henry's eyes on his back and knew that his feelings for Helena were no longer any kind of secret. But that did not matter now. Nothing mattered except finding her. They reached Copper Canyon as the last light faded from the sky. Cole found Helena's rifle exactly where Dutch had described, lying in the dirt near the canyon rim. He dismounted and studied the ground carefully, reading the story written in scuff marks and disturbed earth. Helena's boot prints, clear and purposeful, heading along the canyon edge. Then a confusion of marks, something large moving fast. The prints showed Helena had run, stumbled, and then nothing. The tracks ended at the canyon's edge. "She went over," Cole said, his blood turning to ice. He moved to the rim carefully and looked down. The canyon wall dropped away in a steep but not quite vertical slope, studded with scraggly bushes and loose rock. 40 feet down, he could just make out a narrow ledge where a stunted juniper tree clung to the rock face. "Miss Helena," he shouted into the gathering darkness. "Helena, can you hear me?" Nothing. Just the wind whistling through the canyon and the distant cry of a hawk. Cole shouted again, and this time, faint as a whisper, he heard a response. "Here, down here." Relief so intense it was painful flooded through him. "We are coming, hold on," he turned to his men. "Get ropes and lanterns. She is on that ledge, and we are getting her up." The next hour was an agony of careful work. Cole insisted on being the one lowered down, over the objections of his men who pointed out he was the foreman and should not risk himself. He ignored them and wrapped the rope around his waist, testing the knots 3 times before allowing them to lower him over the edge. The descent felt endless, his boots slipping on loose rock, his hands gripping the rope until they ached. But then he was on the ledge, and there she was. Helena sat with her back against the canyon wall, her left arm cradled against her chest, her face pale in the lantern light. Blood matted her hair on one side, and her split skirts were torn, but her eyes were clear and furious. "A mountain lion," she said through gritted teeth. Startled, it bedded down in some rocks. It charged, my horse spooked and threw me over the edge. I think my arm is broken and I hit my head on the way down, but I am alive, no thanks to that damned cat. Cole wanted to laugh, wanted to cry, wanted to kiss her senseless. Instead, he moved carefully to her side and began assessing her injuries with hands that shook slightly despite his best efforts. "Your arm is definitely broken," he confirmed, feeling the abnormal angle of her forearm beneath her sleeve. "And you have a head wound that needs stitches, but you are right. You are alive, and I am getting you out of here." "Cole!" Helena's good hand gripped his wrist. "I heard wolves while I was down here. A whole pack sounded like, off to the west. They were howling just before you arrived." "Then we move quickly," Cole said. He tied the rope around her waist, fashioning a harness that would support her without jostling her injuries too much. "This is gonna hurt." "Everything already hurts," Helena said. "One more pain hardly matters." She did not cry out during the ascent, though Cole saw her bite her lip hard enough to draw blood. The men hauled her up with agonizing care, and Cole climbed after her, his muscles burning with effort. When they reached the top, Helena was immediately surrounded by concerned cowboys, but her eyes sought out Cole's. "You came," she said simply. "Always," Cole replied. "Now let us get you home." They made a travois to transport her, padding it with blankets to cushion the journey, and rode through the darkness with Cole at her side every step. When they finally reached the ranch house, Henry met them in the yard, and the expression on his face when he saw his daughter alive made Cole's throat tight. "Get her inside," Henry ordered. "Maria, hot water and bandages. Cole, you know what to do. Help her." In the familiar bedroom where Cole had once recovered from his own injuries, he and Maria worked together to tend Helena's wounds. Her head injury was superficial, though it had bled dramatically as head wounds did. Her arm was another matter. The break was clean, fortunately, and Cole had set bones before on ranch animals, and even once on a cowhand who had been kicked by a horse. He gave Helena a leather strap to bite on, apologized, and pulled the bone back into alignment with one quick, sure motion. Helena did cry out then, and Cole felt the sound like a knife to his heart. But she did not pass out, and she held still while he splinted the arm securely, wrapping it in cloth that Maria soaked in plaster to create a rigid cast. "You're going to have quite a scar," Cole said quietly, as he stitched the cut on her scalp. "Right along your hairline here." "Good," Helena said, her voice tight with pain but steady. "I will match you then. We can both have scars from nearly dying in the wilderness." "I would prefer if you stopped nearly dying," Cole said. "It is extremely hard on my nerves." Henry had been hovering in the doorway throughout the treatment, and now he stepped into the room, his eyes moving between Cole and Helena. "Son," he said to Cole, "can I speak with you outside for a moment?" Cole finished tying off the last stitch and followed Henry out into the hallway, bracing himself for whatever was coming. Henry closed the bedroom door and turned to face him, and his expression was impossible to read. "How long?" Henry asked simply. Cole could have pretended not to understand, but he was done with pretending. 4 months, more or less, since shortly after I started working here. We were trying to wait until I had something to offer, until I could approach you properly. And today, when you rode out after her?" Henry's eyes were sharp. "That was not a foreman concerned about his employer's daughter." "No, sir, it was not." Cole met his gaze steadily. "I am in love with your daughter, desperately, completely. I know I am not what you probably hoped for her. I am still building my prospects, still establishing myself, but I swear to you I will spend the rest of my life working to be worthy of her, to give her the life she deserves." Henry studied him for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he smiled. "Cole, I have been watching you two dance around each other for months. Did you really think I did not notice? I may be getting older, but I am not blind." Cole blinked, thrown off balance. "You knew?" "I suspected. Helena confirmed it when you went over that canyon edge tonight. She made me promise that if anything happened to you in the rescue, I would make sure you knew she loved you." Henry clapped a hand on Cole's shoulder. "You have already proven yourself worthy, son, not by buying land or building wealth, though those things matter. You proved it by how you took charge tonight, by how you would not give up, by how you went down that cliff without hesitation to bring her back. A man who loves my daughter like that, who I can trust to protect her and cherish her, that is all I need." Cole felt something tight in his chest release. "Sir, I bought that land today, the 200 acres by the river. I was going to ask your permission to court Helena tonight before all this happened. I know I should wait until she is recovered, but I need you to know my intentions are serious." "I never doubted that," Henry said, "and yes, you have my permission, my blessing even. Court her, marry her, make her happy. That is all I ask." Cole found his voice was rough when he spoke. "Thank you, sir. I will not let you down." "I know you will not. Now go back in there and sit with her. She's going to need careful watching tonight with that head injury, and I suspect she will rest easier if you are the one doing the watching." Cole did not need to be told twice. He returned to Helena's room to find her still propped up on pillows, looking exhausted but alert. Maria had left a lamp burning low on the bedside table and retreated to give them privacy. "What did Father say?" Helena asked immediately. Cole pulled a chair close to the bed and took her good hand in his. "He said I can court you. He gave his blessing." Helena's eyes widened. "He did? Truly?" "Apparently we are not as subtle as we thought." Cole raised her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. He knows how I feel about you, and he approves." "Well," Helena said, and despite her injuries, her smile was brilliant. "That is excellent, because I fully intend to marry you, Cole Vance. Just so you are aware." "Is that a proposal, Miss Walsh?" Cole asked, grinning. "It is a statement of fact," Helena said firmly. "You can make the actual proposal later, when I am not covered in blood and plaster. Do it properly, with a ring and everything." "I can do that," Cole agreed. "But Helena, just so you are aware, I was terrified today. When Dutch said you were missing, when I saw that blood on your saddle, I have never been so scared in my life." Helena squeezed his hand. "I am sorry. I should have been more careful. But Cole, thank you for finding me, for coming after me. I was beginning to think I might be on that ledge all night, and the wolves were getting closer, and I was trying very hard not to panic." "I will always come after you," Cole said seriously, "no matter what. That is a promise." They sat together in the quiet room, hands linked, while the lamp burned low, and the night sounds of the ranch drifted through the window. Helena dozed off eventually, exhausted by pain and shock, and Cole kept watch, just as Henry had suggested, waking her every hour to make sure she was lucid and coherent, the way you were supposed to with head injuries. In the gray light before dawn, Helena woke more fully and found Cole still sitting beside her, still holding her hand. "You did not sleep at all," she accused. "I will sleep later. I wanted to make sure you were all right." "I am better than all right," Helena said. "I am alive. My arm will heal, and apparently I get to marry the man I love with my father's blessing. This is quite possibly the worst day of my life." Cole laughed softly, when you put it that way. Over the following weeks, Helena recovered with the same determination she brought to everything else. She fretted at being unable to do her usual work, but Maria and Cole ganged up on her, insisting she rest and let her body heal. Cole divided his time between managing the ranch and sitting with Helena, and they used the forced quiet to talk about everything: their plans for the future, how to combine Cole's land with the ranch operations, what they wanted in a marriage. "I will not be a traditional wife," Helena warned. "I cannot simply sit in a house and do needlework while you run everything. I need to be involved, to work, to contribute." "I would not want a traditional wife," Cole said honestly. "I fell in love with you exactly as you are, strong, capable, independent. The last thing I want is for you to change. We will build something together as partners." 6 weeks after her accident, Helena's arm had healed enough to remove the cast. The bone had set well, and though she would need to be careful for a while longer, she had full range of motion. To celebrate, Cole asked Henry for an evening off and borrowed the ranch buggy. "Where are we going?" Helena asked as they drove away from the ranch at sunset. "You will see," Cole said mysteriously. He drove them to his land, the 200 acres by the Arkansas River that represented all his hopes and dreams. They arrived just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. Cole helped Helena down from the buggy and walked her to a spot near the old cabin, where the ground sloped gently down to the river, and you could see for miles across the valley. "This is it," he said, suddenly nervous. "This is what I have been working toward. It is not much yet, just raw land and potential. But I see what it could be, Helena. A house there, near the cottonwoods, barns and corrals down closer to the river. Good grazing in that meadow, and the water rights are solid. It would take years of work, but we could build something real here, something lasting." Helena turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. "It is beautiful," she said softly. "I can see it too. Everything you described." Cole took a deep breath and pulled a small box from his jacket pocket. He had spent 2 weeks' wages on the ring inside, a simple gold band with a small diamond that caught the fading light. "Helena Walsh," he said, and dropped to one knee despite the protest from his old injury. "Will you marry me? Will you be my partner in building this ranch and building a life together? I promise I will work every day to make you happy, to be worthy of you, to love you the way you deserve to be loved." Helena's eyes were bright with tears, but she was smiling as she pulled him to his feet. "Yes," she said. Yes, of course, yes, but Cole, you are already worthy. You have been worthy since the moment you looked at me with gratitude instead of shame when I found you caught in that trap. When you saw me as someone capable instead of someone to be protected. That is what I fell in love with. Cole slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her properly, thoroughly, without any need to hide or hold back. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Helena laughed with pure joy. "When should we marry?" she asked. "Tomorrow, if you wanted," Cole said, only half joking. "Let us give it 2 months," Helena said practically. "That gives us time to plan properly and for me to make a dress that is not torn by canyon walls. And it will be December, which is slower on the ranch. We could take a wedding trip to Santa Fe, maybe, if Father can spare us." They spent another hour on the land, walking hand in hand through what would be their future, planning where buildings would go and how many cattle they would start with. As the stars came out overhead, bright and countless in the clear Colorado sky, Cole felt a profound sense of gratitude for the chain of events that had led him here. The trap that could have killed him had instead brought him to Helena. The injury that seemed like disaster had become the doorway to everything he had ever wanted. "What are you thinking?" Helena asked, leaning against his shoulder. "That I am the luckiest man alive," Cole said honestly, "and that I am glad I got caught in that trap, even though it hurt like hell and I could have died, because it brought me to you." "Strange how fate works," Helena agreed. "How the worst things can lead to the best things if you're open to the possibility." They returned to the ranch that night officially engaged, and the household erupted in celebration. Henry broke out his best whiskey, Maria cried happy tears and immediately began planning the wedding feast, and the ranch hands congratulated Cole with handshakes and backslaps that nearly knocked him over. The next 2 months passed in a flurry of preparation. Helena enlisted Maria and several ladies from town to help with her dress, a simple but elegant ivory gown that she could actually work in, not some useless confection of lace and ruffles. Cole spent his evenings working on the cabin, repairing the roof and walls, building new furniture with his own hands. The other ranch hands helped in their spare time, and what had been a dilapidated structure slowly transformed into a small but solid home. They were married on a cold, clear December morning in the small church in Trinidad, with what seemed like half the county in attendance. Henry walked Helena down the aisle, his eyes wet, and placed her hand in Cole's with obvious emotion. The ceremony was simple and traditional, and when the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Cole kissed his bride with a sense of profound rightness settling over him. The reception at the Walsh Ranch lasted into the evening, with music and dancing and more food than Cole had ever seen in one place. He danced with Helena until they were both breathless, and with Maria, who cried on his shoulder, and even with a few of the town ladies who had initially been scandalized by Helena's unconventional choice of husband, but who had been won over by the obvious love between the newlyweds. As the sun set, Cole and Helena slipped away from the celebration, riding in the decorated buggy to their own land, to the cabin that was now their home. Cole carried her over the threshold as tradition demanded, and they stood together in the single room that held a bed, a table, 2 chairs, and a wood stove, along with all their hopes for the future. "It is perfect," Helena said, looking around. "Absolutely perfect." And it was. They spent their wedding night wrapped in each other's arms, learning the language of touch and pleasure, speaking in whispers and sighs. When Helena fell asleep with her head on his chest, her ring gleaming on her finger, Cole stared at the ceiling and sent a silent thank you to whatever power had brought them together. The first year of marriage was hard work, and deep joy intertwined. They spent half their time on their own land building the ranch from the ground up, and half at the Walsh place where Cole still worked as foreman. It was grueling, managing both operations, but they had help. Henry became more grandfather than employer, teaching and advising, but stepping back to let the younger generation take charge. The ranch hands who had initially been skeptical of Cole having married the boss's daughter quickly learned that both he and Helena worked harder than anyone else, and their respect solidified into genuine loyalty. Cole and Helena's ranch slowly took shape. They built a proper barn, bought their first cattle, established water systems and fencing. Helena proved to have an eye for breeding stock, selecting horses and cattle that consistently produced healthy offspring. Cole handled the business side, negotiating prices and contracts with a skill that surprised him as much as anyone else. By the end of their first year, they were profitable, barely, but enough to prove the concept worked. By the end of their second year, they had paid off all their startup debts and were expanding. And through it all, their love deepened and matured, moving from the desperate passion of new lovers to something richer and more enduring. In the spring of their third year of marriage, Helena came to Cole, where he was mending fence, and announced, without preamble, "I am pregnant." Cole dropped his tools. "You are certain?" "Quite certain. Maria helped me confirm it. We will have a baby in October." Helena's eyes were bright with excitement and fear. "Cole, I am terrified. My mother died when I was young, and I do not remember enough about her to know if there are complications in the family. And what if I'm not good at this? What if—" Cole pulled her into his arms, silencing her fears with a kiss. "You are the strongest, most capable person I know. You will be an amazing mother, and I will be there every step of the way. Whatever happens, we face it together." Their son was born on a crisp October morning, and they named him Henry Cole Vance, after both grandfathers. He came into the world screaming his outrage at the cold air, and Cole held him with shaking hands while Helena watched with exhausted pride. "He is perfect," Cole whispered, studying the tiny red face, the miniature hands that gripped his finger with surprising strength. "He looks like you," Helena said. "Poor child." Cole laughed, kissed her forehead, and settled beside her on the bed with their son cradled between them. "We made a human," he said, awed. "We did," Helena agreed, "and I suspect he's going to be as stubborn as both of us combined. God help everyone." She was right. Young Henry was indeed stubborn and loud and absolutely fearless. He learned to walk early and immediately used his newfound mobility to get into everything. Cole spent many evenings pulling his son out of horse stalls and barn lofts and water troughs, while Helena looked on with exasperated amusement. 2 years later, their daughter arrived, and they named her Grace Maria Vance, after the grace that had brought them together, and the woman who had become like a second mother to Helena. Grace was quieter than her brother, but no less determined, and she had her mother's dark eyes and her father's stubborn chin. Life settled into a rhythm, work and family, challenges and triumphs, the turning of seasons, and the steady growth of both their ranch and their children. Cole would sometimes ride out to the spot where he had been trapped, now on his own land, and stand there remembering. The trap was long gone, removed and destroyed years ago, but the memory remained vivid. The pain, the fear, the desperation, and then Helena appearing like salvation itself. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Cole brought Helena back to that spot. They stood together in the late afternoon sun, older and weathered by hard work, happy in ways neither of them had imagined possible a decade earlier. "Do you ever regret it?" Cole asked. "Marrying me instead of someone who could have given you an easier life?" Helena looked at him like he had lost his mind. "Are you joking? Cole, you gave me exactly the life I wanted. We built this together. We are partners in every sense of the word. Our children are healthy and happy. Our ranch is prospering. Your old injury bothers you when it rains, and I have more scars than any proper lady should, and we work too hard and sleep too little, and I would not change a single thing." Cole pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, still that same lavender after all these years. "I love you," he said, "more now than even that first day, which I would not have thought possible." "I love you too," Helena said. Thank you for getting caught in that trap." He laughed, the sound carrying across their land, their home, their life. "Thank you for finding me." They stood together as the sun set over the Colorado hills. Two people who had found each other in the most unlikely way and built something lasting from that chance encounter. Around them, their ranch stretched out in all directions, pastures dotted with cattle, horses in the corrals, the house they had expanded twice to accommodate their growing family, the barn where young Henry was probably getting into trouble right at this moment. In the distance, Cole could see his father-in-law riding toward them, probably bringing the children back from their afternoon visit to Grandpa's house. Soon there would be supper to make, chores to finish, bedtime stories to tell. The simple, profound routine of a life well lived. Cole took Helena's hand, the ring he had given her so many years ago still bright on her finger, and they walked back toward home together. Behind them, the spot where a trap had once been remained empty, just another patch of ground in the vast Colorado wilderness. But for Cole and Helena, it was sacred ground, the place where their story had truly begun. Years continued to pass with the steady rhythm of ranch life. Young Henry grew into a strong, capable teenager who had his father's work ethic and his mother's intuition with animals. Grace became the steady heart of the family, organizing her chaotic brother and keeping the household running smoothly even as a child. They added a third child to the family when Helena was 32, another boy they named Thomas, who was quiet and thoughtful and loved reading more than riding. Henry Walsh, growing frailer with age, eventually retired completely from active ranching and spent his days in a comfortable chair on the porch, watching his grandchildren grow with obvious satisfaction. He passed peacefully in his sleep when young Henry was 15, and they buried him on a hill overlooking both ranches, the empire he had built and protected through the hardest years. He was proud of you, Cole told Helena, as they stood by the grave after the funeral. He told me so many times, proud that you had built your own success, proud of the family you had raised, proud that you had never lost your strength, even when life was hard. Helena wiped her eyes. I hope I made him happy. You did, Cole assured her. You made everyone around you happy. That is your gift. With Henry's passing, they inherited the Walsh Ranch, though the foreman Cole had hired years ago ran the day-to-day operations. The two properties were now effectively one large operation, with their children learning every aspect of the business in preparation for eventually taking over. Young Henry, at 18, announced his intention to study agricultural science at the new university in Colorado Springs. I want to learn the modern methods, Pa, he explained. I want to bring new ideas to the ranch, make it even better. Cole, remembering his own hunger for learning, for improvement, embraced the idea immediately. Go, he said. Learn everything you can. This place will still be here when you get back, and we will implement whatever innovations you bring home. Grace, at 16, was already being courted by a young man from a neighboring ranch, the son of a family the Vances had been friendly with for years. Cole found himself in the strange position of evaluating a potential son-in-law the way Henry had once evaluated him, and he tried to be fair while also being protective of his daughter. He is a good man, Pa, Grace said, exasperated by her father's scrutiny. He works hard, he's kind, and he loves me. Is that not enough? Your mother was right, Cole said to Helena that night. Raising daughters is terrifying. I want to lock her in a tower until she is 40. Helena laughed. You will do no such thing. Grace has good judgment. Let her make her own choices, the way my father let me make mine. Your father was a saint, Cole grumbled, but he gave his blessing to the courtship and eventually to the marriage, and gave away his daughter with tears streaming down his face despite his best efforts to remain stoic. Through it all, Cole and Helena remained the center of their world, partners in every way that mattered. They still worked side by side, still stole moments alone together, still fell into bed exhausted at the end of long days and woke before dawn to do it all again. The years had left their marks, silver threading through Helena's dark hair, lines around Cole's eyes, old injuries that ached in cold weather. But they had also deepened their love, seasoned it with shared experiences and mutual respect. One evening in their 25th year of marriage, Cole found Helena standing at the window of their bedroom, looking out at the moonlit landscape. He moved behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, and she leaned back against him with a contented sigh. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Everything," Helena said. "How we started with nothing but determination in each other. How we built all this from raw land and faith. How our children are grown and starting their own lives. How impossibly lucky we have been." "Luck had nothing to do with it," Cole said. "You worked for every bit of what we have." "We worked for it," Helena corrected, "together. That is the point. Cole, do you remember what you said to me the night we got engaged? That you saw what this place could become?" "I do." "Did it turn out how you imagined?" she asked. Cole considered the question seriously, looking out at the ranch they had built. The expanded house with its wide porches and sturdy construction, the multiple barns and outbuildings, the hundreds of cattle grazing in the moonlight, the horses in their corrals, the whole thriving enterprise they had created from nothing but vision and effort. "Better," he said finally. "It turned out better than I imagined because I could not have imagined how good it would feel to build it with you. How good it would feel to watch our children grow into fine people. How good it would feel to wake up next to you every morning for 25 years and still want to wake up next to you tomorrow." Helena turned in his arms, her eyes bright. "We should renew our vows," she said suddenly. "Have a celebration. Invite everyone. Show our children and grandchildren what a marriage should look like." "Grandchildren?" Cole asked, startled. "Grace is not even—" "She is," Helena said, grinning. "She told me yesterday we are going to be grandparents by summer." Cole whooped with joy and spun her around, laughing like a young man again. "We are going to be terrible grandparents," he predicted, "spoiling them rotten and undermining their parents at every turn." "I certainly hope so," Helena agreed. They held the vow renewal ceremony on the exact spot where Cole had been trapped all those years ago, with the whole extended family in attendance. Their 3 children, Grace's husband, young Henry home from university for the occasion, Thomas already taller than his father at 16. Friends and neighbors from all over the county came to celebrate, and Henry Walsh's old foreman served as officiant since he had been present for the original wedding and declared himself invested in their continued happiness. Cole and Helena stood hand in hand and repeated the vows they had made a quarter-century earlier, and Cole found the words meant even more now than they had then. Young love was beautiful, but love that had weathered years and hardships and triumphs together, that had survived sleepless nights with sick children and brutal winters and financial worries and loss. That love was magnificent. "I have loved you since the moment you appeared like an angel to save me," Cole said, speaking from the heart rather than reciting any prepared words. "I will love you until my last breath. You are my partner, my best friend, the mother of my children, and the beat of my heart. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for building this life with me. Thank you for every moment we have had together." Helena was crying openly now, something she rarely allowed herself. "I have loved you since you looked at me with respect instead of condescension," she said, "since you saw me as capable rather than fragile. You let me be myself, Cole Vance. You never tried to diminish me or change me. You celebrated my strength instead of fearing it. That is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me, and I will spend the rest of my life returning that gift to you." They kissed to thunderous applause, and the celebration that followed lasted until long after dark. Their children made speeches that were both touching and embarrassing. Old friends told stories of their early years together, and Maria, now elderly but still sharp as a tack, cried into her handkerchief and declared them the finest example of marriage she had ever witnessed. As the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Cole and Helena found themselves alone on the porch of their home, watching the stars come out overhead. Grace's husband had taken their daughter home already, protective of her pregnancy. Young Henry was showing Thomas something on his university textbooks. The hired hands were settling the horses for the night. Everything was as it should be. "We did it," Helena said softly. "We really did it. We built something that will last beyond us. We did, Cole agreed. And you know what the best part is? We get to keep doing it. We are not done yet. There are grandchildren to spoil and new challenges to face and more years together to enjoy. Good, Helena said. Because I am not finished with you yet, Cole Vance. I plan to love you for at least another 25 years, possibly more. It is a deal, Cole said, pulling her close. Though I think we should aim for 50 more years just to be safe. Helena laughed. That same joyful sound that had caught his attention all those years ago. They sat together in comfortable silence, two people who no longer needed words to communicate, who could exist together in perfect understanding. Years later, when they were old and silver-haired, when their grandchildren had multiplied and their ranch had become one of the most successful in all of Colorado, Cole and Helena would still take rides out to that spot where it all began. They would stand on ground that had once held a trap meant to snare animals and instead had caught two human hearts, and they would remember. They would remember the pain and the fear, yes, but more than that, they would remember the moment their eyes first met. The moment Helena's capable hands had freed him. The moment they realized they were falling in love. The 1,000 small moments that followed, building a life one day at a time, one decision at a time, one loving gesture at a time. Their children and grandchildren would inherit the ranch eventually, carrying on the legacy of hard work and dedication. But more than land and cattle, Cole and Helena gave them an example of what love could be when it was rooted in respect and partnership, when it was tested by hardship and strengthened by shared triumph. On a golden autumn evening when they were both well into their 70s, Cole and Helena made their usual pilgrimage to the trap site. Cole's leg ached in the cold, as it always did, a permanent reminder of how their story began. Helena's arm sometimes pained her where it had broken all those years ago. They were slower now, moving with the careful deliberation of age, but they were together, and that was all that mattered. "Do you ever wish things had been different?" Helena asked, a question she had never posed before. "If you had not been caught in that trap, you might have killed that mountain lion, collected the bounty, bought your land earlier. You could have had years more to build your ranch. You might have met some other woman, had a different life entirely." Cole stopped walking and turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. "Helena Vance, I have never wished for any other life than the one I have had with you. That trap was the best thing that ever happened to me. It brought me to you. Everything else, all the success, all the happiness, everything good in my life flows from that moment. I would get caught in that trap again tomorrow if it meant having another day with you." Helena's eyes shimmered with tears, but she was smiling. "You are a ridiculous romantic. Do you know that?" "I learned from the best," Cole said, and kissed her in the fading light. They stayed on their land until both were in their 80s, refusing to fully retire despite their children's concerns. They were there to welcome each new grandchild, to celebrate their children's successes, to provide wisdom and stability as the family continued to grow. And they were there for each other always, through every season and challenge. When Cole finally passed away at 86, peacefully in his sleep with Helena beside him, the whole county mourned. He had become a legend in his own time, a man who had started with nothing and built an empire through sheer determination and hard work, who had been a fair employer and a good friend to everyone who knew him. But Helena knew the truth that others might not fully understand. Cole's greatest achievement was not the ranch or the wealth or the legacy he left for his children. It was the way he had loved, fully, deeply, with unwavering commitment through more than 50 years of marriage. He had been her partner in every sense, never diminishing her, always celebrating her strengths, working beside her to build something neither could have created alone. Helena lived another 3 years after Cole's death, and in that time, she was never truly alone. She was surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, by friends and neighbors who remembered what she and Cole had built together. She spent her final years recording the story of their life together, writing it all down so that future generations would know how it had been, how two people could find each other in the most unlikely circumstances and create something magnificent. On a spring morning with wildflowers blooming across the ranch and new calves testing their legs in the pastures, Helena passed away in the bedroom she had shared with Cole for so many years. Her children found her with a smile on her face, her journals stacked neatly on the bedside table, her wedding ring still bright on her finger. They buried her next to Cole on the hill overlooking the ranch, under a sky so blue it hurt to look at. And if you visit that place even today, you can see the two stones side by side, marking the resting place of Cole and Helena Vance, partners in life and in death, who proved that love could grow from the darkest moments into something beautiful and lasting. The ranch they built still operates today, run by their descendants, who carry on the traditions of hard work, fair dealing, and partnership that Cole and Helena established. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the wind is right, people claim you can see two figures walking hand in hand across the land they loved, still together even in death, bound by a love that started with a trap and a rescue and grew into a legend that will never be forgotten. Their story became the foundation upon which generations were built, a reminder that fate sometimes works in mysterious ways, that disasters can lead to blessings, and that true love, when it is rooted in respect and partnership, can overcome any obstacle and last beyond a lifetime. Young Henry Vance eventually took over the ranch operations, implementing the scientific approaches he had learned at university and doubling the property's productivity within 10 years. He married a school teacher from Denver, and together they had 5 children, each of whom heard the story of how their great-grandparents met, the tale of the trap and the rescue and the love that followed. Grace and her husband built their own ranch on land adjacent to the family property, creating a dynasty that eventually spread across 3 counties. Her children grew up knowing the story of their grandparents, learning the values of hard work and partnership that Cole and Helena had exemplified. Thomas, the quietest of the Vance children, surprised everyone by becoming a writer. He published a novel based on his parents' story that became a bestseller across the Western Territories, bringing the legend of Cole and Helena Vance to thousands of readers who had never set foot in Colorado. In the introduction, he wrote, "This is a story about traps and freedom, about danger and rescue, about 2 people who built an empire from nothing but love and determination. But more than that, it is a story about what we choose to do when fate gives us a chance at happiness. My parents chose to be brave. They chose to work hard. They chose to love fully and without reservation. That choice made all the difference." The land where the trap had been eventually became a kind of shrine for the family. Each generation of Vance children was brought to that spot and told the story of how their family began. They learned about the pain and fear, yes, but more importantly, they learned about courage, about kindness, about the importance of being there for each other in moments of crisis. On the 100th anniversary of Cole and Helena's wedding, more than 200 family members gathered at the ranch for a massive celebration. They came from all over the West. Some had traveled from as far as California and Texas, all of them descendants of the 2 people who had met under such extraordinary circumstances a century earlier. The eldest living descendant, Grace's daughter, who was herself a grandmother now, stood before the assembled crowd and raised a glass in toast. "To Cole and Helena," she said, her voice carrying across the crowd, "who proved that love is not about perfect circumstances or easy paths. Love is about choosing someone and continuing to choose them every single day through hardship and triumph, through sickness and health, until death and beyond. They gave us more than land and wealth. They gave us an example of how to live fully, how to love deeply, and how to build something that lasts. To Cole and Helena." "To Cole and Helena," the crowd echoed, and the sound rolled across the ranch like thunder, a tribute to 2 people who had turned a moment of terrible luck into a lifetime of love. The celebration continued long into the night, with music and dancing and storytelling. Children ran wild across the grounds that had once been empty wilderness, playing in the barns and corrals that Cole had built with his own hands, splashing in the creek where Helena had once watered her horses. The ranch house expanded many times over the years, blazed with light and laughter, a beacon in the Colorado darkness. And somewhere in that crowd, if you looked carefully, you might have glimpsed two figures that seemed somehow more vivid than the others, their hands clasped together, their eyes only for each other. Two people who had found each other against all odds and created something that would outlive them by generations, still present in the place they loved most, still together after all these years. The trap had been meant to catch an animal, to hold it until the trapper could claim his prize. Instead, it had caught a man and led to him being found by a woman who would become his salvation. From that moment of crisis came a love story that would be told for generations, a testament to the power of kindness, the importance of courage, and the enduring strength of true partnership. Cole and Helena Vance had not lived perfect lives. They had faced hardships and losses, made mistakes, and experienced sorrows. But through it all, they had each other. They faced every challenge as partners, celebrated every victory together, and built something lasting from nothing but determination and love. Their legacy was not just in the land they accumulated or the wealth they generated or even the family they raised. Their legacy was in the example they set, the standard they established for what a marriage could be when both parties approached it with respect, dedication, and unwavering commitment to each other's happiness and success. The story of how Cole's leg was caught in a trap for hours, how Helena found him and freed him before the wolves came, became more than just a tale of rescue. It became a metaphor for marriage itself, being willing to save each other over and over again in small ways and large, for as long as you both shall live. And in the end, perhaps that is the greatest love story of all. Not the dramatic moments of rescue and danger, but the quiet daily choice to be there for each other, to work side by side toward common goals, to celebrate each other's strengths and support each other through weaknesses. Cole and Helena understood this truth, lived it fully, and passed that understanding on to everyone they touched. Their ranch still stands today, a thriving operation that has survived economic depressions, droughts, changing markets, and the passage of time. It stands as a monument to what two people can accomplish when they refuse to give up, when they choose each other repeatedly, when they build their lives on a foundation of mutual respect and enduring love. And somewhere in the Colorado high country, on a spot where a man was once trapped and a woman once saved him, the grass grows green and wild. Cattle graze there peacefully, and horses run free, and the wind whispers through the pine trees, carrying with it the echo of a love story that began with pain and fear but ended with triumph and joy, a love story that will never be forgotten as long as there are Vances in Colorado to remember.